Good morning. It's Thursday, April 21st, and here's our daily weather briefing for today. We've got quite a bit to talk about today and upcoming for this week, so let's get started in it. Let's look at today's current weather conditions across the United States, and generally the temperatures are pretty mild. The temperatures are ranging from the mid 40s in North Dakota all the way up into the 80s out here in Florida, which is quite balmy for this time of the year. But generally across the west, it's pretty quiet into the central plains. We have an upper level storm system that's finally moving out of the central plains with some scattered showers across Iowa, which will be lighting up later on this afternoon. Some cool air aloft moves into some unstable atmosphere across Illinois and Indiana, so expect some showers and thunderstorms will light up there a little bit later this afternoon. But in the meantime, we have a pretty broad band of showers and some moderate to heavy rain extending all the way from Michigan down into the Ohio River Valley. A few isolated thunderstorms in there. The bigger thunderstorms right now are along the Texas coast here. We had a complex develop just south of Lubbock, Texas, and has now moved towards the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, which will move out into the coast and reignite later on today, associated with an upper disturbance here. But a broad trough of a broad front that extends all the way from the Central Plains, upper Midwest, that goes into Texas, back into the Southwest there. Looking at the watch warning map, not a huge lot going on for April right now. We do have some winter storm watches in effect for California for a storm system that will be moving on there later on in the next couple of days. Still have quite a bit of flash flood watches and warnings in effect for the central and southeastern portion of the United States due to the heavy flooding that's been there the last several days. Some coastal coastal flood advisories across Florida, or not flood advisory, but coastal advisories across Florida, and then some special weather statements out here in the northeastern portion of the United States. Looking at the current satellite, you can see that big upper level low sitting over Iowa right now with a nice spin around it with a frontal boundary all the way across the Midwest down into portions of Texas here. And you can see those thunderstorms beginning to die out here in the southeastern coast of Texas, but pretty much generally clear skies mostly. You can see the snow quite a bit showing up in Colorado and Wyoming and parts of Idaho and Montana. And off the west coast here, you can begin to see the next storm system will be coming in. Looking at our radar map, again, we saw earlier we have basically some scattered showers and then a band of showers, and moderate rain extends all the way from Toronto, Canada, through Cleveland down to Cincinnati, just west of Nashville into the Memphis area, and then some more showers that have moved into Alabama at this point. But really the heaviest stuff is out here near Houston, where they don't need the rain. But this activity is moving pretty quickly, so it won't be concentrating in one area for a long period of time. Let's take a look at our severe weather analysis, and for today, right now we've got a couple of moderate or marginal risks in effect for portions of Illinois, covering most of Illinois at this point in time. That's because of that upper level that's going to be moving in there. We expect the air to destabilize because of the cooler air aloft, so we'll probably see some light to moderate hail reports and maybe some moderate wind reports, but nothing too widespread. More of the stronger activity will be along the southern portion of Texas here, and I think this marginal risk should be extended a little bit further back towards Alpine, Texas. Some conditions have quite ripened there, especially around the Del Rio area. I think we might see a slight risk be added later on today. Now, the one thing I want to talk about is what everybody seems to be talking about there on the internet nowadays is the Day 6 severe weather outlook. And SPC at this point in time has now put a 30% for Day 6. This would be Tuesday of next week for a large portion of central Oklahoma, and then what would be considered 15%, which is basically the standard slight risk from portions of from about Topeka, Kansas, all the way down to San Antonio, Texas. And we'll talk about that in our 5-day outlook, but that's kind of just to give you a heads up of what's coming up down the road. It does look like we're going to be getting into a stormier pattern, but everybody's kind of going bonkers about this outlook at this point in time out there. Looking at the aviation weather at this point in time, we have those convective segments in effect for the thunderstorms up to 45,000 feet along the Texas coast. But then we also have expected forecasted thunderstorms along the southeastern portion of the United States, extending all the way from Alabama into portions of western Texas. And then other thunderstorms across the Midwest and the Ohio River Valley for later today once the atmosphere begins to heat up and to stabilize. No turbulence segments in effect at this point in time, but I do expect some turbulence associated with some upper level winds out here in the Ohio Valley associated with that upper level low, and no icing segments at this point. Looking at 5,000 feet, we have a pretty decent low-level jet here across Ohio here, and if this storm system is a little bit more wrapped up, we'd be talking about some stronger severe weather possibilities, but everything's kind of disjointed. The front's way ahead of the upper-level support, so we may get a few little isolated thunderstorms that get a little potent here later on today, but a lot of it is not joined together very well, so it's nothing significant, but good southerly flow out of the Gulf of Mexico, so a lot of moisture moving into the eastern portion of the United States. Looking at 10,000 feet, again, a strong jet stream being pushed up above the ridge across the west here, so winds are generally light, and then the trough, a low pressure, the winds, several pockets of stronger winds up to about 40 to 45 knots, and then up to 50 to 60 knots coming around the low pressure system. Looking at about 18,000 feet, again, we have strong winds across the west here being bumped up against this ridge. Strong polar jet pretty much in Canada at this point in time with a little seepage of cooler air aloft around that upper level low that was bogged down pretty much in the western portion of the United States there for a while. It's beginning to move out a little bit. We do have some upper level support here at 18,000 feet with winds between 55 and 65 knots here, so that will help out probably mainly along the eastern portion of Illinois and western portion of Indiana, where I think the greater risk for more organized storms will be in that area at this point in time. And then looking at the 30,000 feet winds aloft at 300 millibars, roughly around that area, 32,000 feet. Again, strong winds aloft associated right over the area where we think the potential for severe weather could be. We may see a slight risk increase in that area a little bit later today. It just depends on how much moisture is. You see, the dew points are kind of low, so most of the thunderstorm activities can be elevated. So there will be hail and some wind reports, but I don't think anything too significant. So let's take a look at the 5-day outlook here and see how things are going to transpire over the rest of the day. Looking at the GFS 18Z today, pretty potent little upper level low sitting here in Iowa, and if we look at the surface here, there's not a lot of surface reflection here, so most of the energy is in the upper levels, so that's one of the reasons why we're not having a more widespread severe weather potential here. But a nice high pressure system nosing in from the Canadian border here, so there's some nice chillier and cooler crisp air coming in around this high pressure system here, so it's going to have some nice relief from some of the heat there, but it's basically some scattered showers and thunderstorms along that frontal system back into Texas here. I think this GFS is a little underdoing it here. I think we might get more activity out here towards the southwestern portion of Texas, the Del Rio area. It's quite a bit of unstable air here, and parameters are quite high with a little bit of a weak surface low here. They'll be moving out, so we might, it is painting thunderstorms here, but I think we'll see a little bit more back westward here. Looking at Friday's forecast, that upper level low begins to open up and progress towards the east here as a progressive right-leaning trough here. So again, not a lot of dynamics associated with this storm as it's going to be decreasing, but if we look at towards the west here, we have a very potent storm system moving into the western portion of the United States. We might see some pretty nice, nasty storms here in California and Oregon at this point in time. Quite a bit of dynamics moving in there. As you can see with the surface reflection, we've got some snow in the mountains and quite a bit of precipitation from San Francisco north all the way up into Washington there. So we might see some potent little storms form with that. The boundary along the eastern portion of the United States begins to wash out, and some scattered showers and thunderstorms along the eastern coast there, but nothing else really major at this point. I think it's kind of calmed down a little bit. Looking at Saturday, that storm system transfers into the Intermountain West, and a lot of dynamics associated with that. We'll see some pretty heavy pockets of snow and some rain showers and thunderstorms across Utah, portions of Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana. Mostly dry across the Southwest, quite windy aspects of that too. But quite a wide fluent flow aloft here, now entering into the central portion of the United States. And as we can see, pretty strong surface reflection of a 995 low pressure system forming here along the Montana-Wyoming border. This may be a little bit more further south than what this is indicating here. So, but there's not a lot of moisture. High pressure systems pretty much shutting off the Gulf of Mexico, and as a result, not a lot of surface moisture, so there's not a lot of precipitation forming out ahead of this low. A lot of wind, however, so expect a lot of wind advisories, some high wind watches that might be increased later on Saturday also. Looking at Sunday, the low pressure system moves out, and another storm system, which I think is going to be more dynamic than this one showing here, is going to be moving into the Pacific Northwest. Looking at the surface low moves out into South Dakota with a very strong wraparound precipitation event with very heavy snows, almost blizzard conditions out here in Montana, if the cold air can get injected into there. But again, because high pressure has been dominating across the Gulf of Mexico, a lot of moisture is going to be prevented from increasing northward. There was some concern that Sunday might be a more of a stronger severe weather day, but I think moisture is going to be kind of limited. We might see thunderstorms form along the dry line later that day, and if they do, they'll be quite strong, but we'll see what happens. We'll have to wait until that day gets here. Looking at Monday, this low moves into the upper Midwest here, and a very dynamic system moves in towards the southwestern portion of the United States, hitting mostly Utah and Nevada. GFS not showing a lot of precipitation here, but I expect a little bit more associated with this storm system. A lot of snow in the Intermountain West, which is great, especially going into the fire season this year. They need that precipitation there to kind of offset that. The surface low in the eastern portion of the United States is now beginning to move off towards the east, and because it's more progressive, it's a lot weaker. So there's going to be quite a large area of showers and thunderstorms. But the one thing we need to notice here is that high pressure system is now well off to the east coast, and now the Gulf of Mexico is now beginning to funnel moisture towards the north in ahead of this storm system that's coming out of the Rockies. And that brings us to the day that everybody's talking about. And I think the GFS here is a little underdone about this low pressure system. I think the European and the Canadian is a little deeper with this trough. And so I think it's going to be a little bit more potent. So it's going to be a little bit more towards the southwest here. We'll have quite a diffluent flow across the central portion of the United States. The question is how much moisture can we get? Now, the surface here, I think, is completely wrong. I don't think the GFS is handling the surface features at all well here. I think we may have a surface low that develops out here along the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas. And at 18Z, I think we'll probably have some strong capping here. Now, looking at the GFS and all the severe weather parameters, they're pretty much off the charts here. The CAPE is showing between 4,000 and 5,000 joules per kilogram. The AHI values are off the chart. I like to sit here and say we're going to have a major severe weather outbreak at this point in time, but I think it'd be foolish to jump onto something that's that 5 days out. Obviously, I will say there is a potential that's there, and people need to be aware of this potential that's there, but I think we need to wait until we get a couple of days closer to see what's going to happen and where things form up. I think anybody from Nebraska, Kansas to Oklahoma to Texas needs to be alert to the fact that we are going to be moving into a stormier week next week, and I think the target will be the Central Plains, but I don't think we need to become alarmist at this point in time and start talking Armageddon here. But obviously I will say that the parameters for a more significant severe weather event, probably the first one of the year, are coming closer and closer together, and this is definitely something that needs to be watched. So looking ahead, There's definitely potential for severe weather later in the week, but everything else till then looks like it's going to be pretty much generally quiet across the United States, except for increasing severe weather starting around Monday, Sunday, and Monday across the Central Plains. We thank you for watching. We hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.